This is an incoming transmission from the Jersey Shore.
This is Financial Insanity with Scott McLean, powered by McLean Advisory Group. Today you'll hear some of the most important financial information and wealth-building techniques available anywhere.
Let's get this party started, huh?
Do you have a question for Scott and the team?
Am I on the air?
609-488-4646. That's 609-488-4646.
We'll get that information to them by radio.
Now, Financial Insanity with Scott McLean.
How much do I need to save? Have I saved enough? Can I avoid having to cut back on my standard of living in retirement? That's very important to me. These are some of the key concerns for retirees today, and we're going to talk about some of this. This is Financial Insanity, out-of-the-box thinking for your financial sanity. I'm Alex Dingman alongside, as always, Scott McLean. McLean
Who's your daddy?
Advisory Group. And if you hear something today, the number 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646. You can hear it. Scott's got the energy to help you out. And today, Scott, we're going to be talking about inflation. And then later on, we're going to talk about planning for the worst, hoping for the best, because you don't want to do the opposite. And also, top 5 signs you need a new advisor. But first, Scott, these inflation numbers, I mean, finally cooling down a bit, dropping to, I think the last number I saw was 3.2% last month, down from 9% a year ago. And Scott, like you know, over the last few years, really seen low inflation numbers up to record high rates, back down. And so going into retirement, you know, how do you calculate this? What kind of inflation rate are you using when you try to figure out what things are going to cost for me when I am retired?
You know, when you go to the restaurant, you look at the menu, and for some people, they look at the right side of the menu, the price of it. And some of you out there don't look at the price. You look at the food, which is great. You know, I think about the price, whether you're looking at the price or not. Inflation is kind of weird because everything I see, it's still expensive. And it hasn't, though, quote, the numbers have come down, my wallet is going out.
Mm-hmm.
So you could say any daggum thing you want, but when you're spending and you're buying a carton of eggs, or I buy my eggs out at the farm from neighbors around, no matter where you're buying your goods, fruits, vegetables, meat, it's still daggum expensive. And when you think about it, numbers are numbers until they hit your wallet. Then it becomes reality. So I don't know. I remember where I just filled up the truck, taking the horses for a competition. And you know, I'm trying to shop around for diesel. It was the best price I found was $4.16, but I got to drive 10 miles to go $4.16 a gallon.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, around the corner is $4.25. Do I spend that? Do I save money? This is getting to the details for some of you if you're like me. You're spending, 80 gallons of gas in a tank, and it adds up. And so numbers are numbers. Yes, I'm glad the numbers are coming down, but my wallet is still going out. So though it sounds good, yes, reality is different than the really what's going on, I think. So I don't know how to answer that question for our listeners because, you know, when I go out to eat. I don't know if you've been out to eat lately, but I think last week we did a show, and I think my biggest drug of choice this past week for my knee surgery is Tylenol, but that's still expensive.
Sure.
But the pain is still at the pump. The pain is still at the restaurants. The pain is still at the grocery stores. The question is, have people put that in their budget? Have they really paid attention?
Yeah.
A lot of times you are seeing it and feeling it. And I can tell you some class of people are really getting hurt out there, Alex.
Mm-hmm.
So again, like we said, numbers are numbers until it really hits your wallet.
Well, and Scott, I know something that's big is really finding the right balance between growth to keep pace with this inflation that's inevitable, but also seeking protection from having too much risk. And you got to be in a world where you're doing both. And that's where you can step in to help navigate. Because like you said, there's a lot of numbers and a lot of jargon and history thrown out there in news. But when it comes down to it, okay, how can you use this information to help somebody to come up with a plan that makes sense and protects them and obviously keeps up with the inflation?
If anybody's out there like myself and you're thinking, okay, will things get better? Will interest rates remain high? Alex, I think you're probably saying that you're a young stud and
I'm
you're
young.
out there maybe maybe buying another house. If those people are out there maybe wanting to downside because their budget's thrown off, we'll speak about that later. Or maybe you're saying, how do I spend much now? Do I save much now? Depending what your wallet size looks like. This is really, really a challenge. I hear many people coming in. Do I gift now to people? Do I hold my money tight? So everybody, which is a problem I've noticed, everybody gets opinions from everybody, but everyone has different circumstances.
Hmm.
And this is where the problem is. You're playing mahjong with your friends at the senior center, or maybe you're bowling or you're playing pickleball, and then you sit down, have a cold beverage of iced tea or something, and then you start shooting the breeze about your portfolios. And the question: one guy is totally aggressive, another guy is totally conservative, and another person doesn't know what to do. Everyone is not the cookie cutter solutions. They just don't work. And so it depends on what you want, your goals. And this is where it comes down to your dreams and goals. So you don't outlive your money, you don't outspend. And when you have inflationary, you are spending a lot more money. We know that. If you don't know that, whether you're Democrat or Republican, take off those two hats and put the dummy hat on. I'm spending more money. And so don't put this theoretical words that they say on TV shows, whether it's CNBC or Fox or whatever. You can see what the heck is. Oops, excuse me. You can see what the heck is going on out there, and not paying attention to this and listening to others versus someone who does this day in and day out. This is not a magic show. I don't have any more rabbits to pull out of the hat. You hear listen to Bloomberg. If those people listen to Bloomberg, they're saying it's going to be a slower economy. You're hearing, okay, things are going to speed up. Is it going to be a crash landing? And so one quarter is different than another quarter. So the numbers are giving us numbers, but they're not really. They're supposed to be a technical guidance, lagging indicator versus a leading indicator. But what are we seeing right now, Alex? And this is called life every single day.
That is Scott McLean, McLean Advisory Group right here, Waretown, New Jersey. And we're talking about inflation. And if inflation is something that's maybe raising some questions for you, the number is always 609-488-4646. 609-488-4646 is the number. But, aside from higher costs due to inflation, what are some other potential risks, Scott, to our income in retirement?
Well, we get caught up, and I'll get to that in a second. We get caught up in this inflation. And, of course, when Biden signed this Inflation Reduction Act, I look at the thing, and I'm saying, what the fingernails is it doing? It's the new spending tax breaks aimed to boost the clean energy and reduce healthcare costs and increase tax revenues. Quote, unquote, that's what it's supposed to, $500 billion. Well, daggum, I haven't seen it going down that much. Frankly, I see it going up. Next thing I'm seeing, okay, the other different expenses. So to answer your question, this inflationary act, I don't know what it is, or maybe it's just another soundbite to really make himself look wonderful. I just don't see anything happening. And some of the areas we talk about, what you're saying, Alex, is what are some of the areas now that people should be focusing on, Alex? Is that what your really bottom line is?
Yeah, just some other, we talked about inflation. We're heavy on that, but that's not the only potential risk to our finances in retirement. There's other stuff we got to be considering as well.
Well, I think if I'm talking to people my age and older, you want to help your kids out. Some of you can help your kids out. Some of you shouldn't help your children out if they need help. Now, I'm not bashing on anybody. I'm not bashing on your heart. I'm focusing on the wallet. So many times our kids want help, and I'd love to help my kids if they need it. Need versus greed. So be careful out there if you're about to donate money to the kids. Help the kids out of a tight situation. There is a cost to be paid before you say yes. Always say to your children if they need help or need a hand up versus a handout. I would really encourage you to pay attention to the expenses, your needs, and looking down the line, maybe 3, 5, 7 years from now, what happens if your lights start to get dim and you need maybe someone else to help you? That's number one. Because that's number one, because I think it's on a lot of people's minds. They want to donate money to kids or help their family out because that's what they do. And that's fine for some people. It could be totally disastrous to others. Another thing, I had a young couple come into me, young. What am I saying? Young. She was 67, has a beautiful new sweetie in her life. He's 71. And they have about $150,000 saved, great Social Security, and a small little pension coming in. She said, Scott, I want to buy a second house. Now, rather than saying, what are you, double dumb? I wouldn't say that. I'm just saying, let's walk through the numbers together and see what the extra outlay is going to be. Well, after we did it together, she found out, because I let her run the numbers herself. I was like walking her through this valley that she wants to go into. And she found out she was in the valley of shadow death if she pulled the trigger. The next thing is, well, Scott, why don't I just sell the property and buy another house? And she went out to do it, her and her sweetie. And they went out to buy this property, and she is just lovely. And they go to buy the property. And again, I guess the cuss word in this little scenario here is count the cost, all different areas. And so we then ran the numbers, and she's going to buy a new house, and she's going to get a new mortgage. And in her case, this is not you listening to me right now. In her case, I said, probably the best thing you could ever do in this situation, rather than get cash poor and buy this beautiful house and actually she ended up in North Carolina. They moved down there just a few months ago, but it just hit me so hard. She would be butt broke if she didn't get a reverse mortgage. This helped her because she sold her house in New Jersey, moved to North Carolina, put half down in the property in North Carolina, and then she has extra liquid cash to get her through. And on interest only, she will be just fine. Mm-hmm. The worry, I put a T chart on the left-hand side, the good news, the bad news. If she or he passes away, Social Security comes off of the table. So if he dies, now she's got a bigger bill to pay. She didn't count on what if he dies. We don't think about that. We don't want to think about our loved one dying or becoming disabled or going to the nursing home or how much work it is. But you've got to count the cost. So I guess you need somebody to help you. I'd love to help anyone who has a question. Give our studios a call. And sincerely, no cost, no obligation. Tell people about us at 609-488-4646. I promise you I've been through a lot of different situations, and I can tell you in going through them, it's not only a learning curve, an education curve, but a helpful curve for those of you going through a challenging time right now. I think that's really important, especially in the inflationary times.
Yep. Thank you for that, Scott. The number again, 609-488-4646. Coming up, we're going to talk about planning for the worst, hoping for the best. This is Financial Insanity with Scott McLean.
Scott McLean at McLean Advisory Group often talks about the difference between retirement savings and retirement income. It isn't necessarily how much money you have saved that's most important. It's having a steady stream of income in retirement no matter how long you live. Scott has strategies that can help you create consistent monthly income for the rest of your life. He can help you make important decisions today so you can have the income you need in retirement. Having a big nest egg is great, but how will it provide you with the income you need for as long as you live? The number to get more information from Scott at McLean Advisory Group is 609-488-4646. That's 609-488-4646. Turn your portfolio into a plan with help from Scott McLean. 609-488-4646. Investing involves risk. Firm offers insurance services. Investment advisory services are offered through Bell Point Asset Management, LLC.
Every year, more than 500,000 Americans file for bankruptcy due to medical bills. Healthcare emergency, catastrophic illness, accident can knock you off your feet physically and financially. This is Financial Insanity with Scott McLean. The number, 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646. Scott McLean, McLean Advisory Group. And this is a reality, Scott, and something that we got to plan for, that stuff's going to happen. We're going to have medical expenses.
Medical expenses are real. Going through what I went through, just a knee surgery, put me a new knee in there, and now I got to work out. But it takes time, effort, and energy. They said I wouldn't be back to work for 2 or 3 weeks, and some people take longer. Well, I was back in a week. I think you and I spoke the week after, but I didn't have the energy I had. I was planning for the best because I told the staff before the drugs wore off, I'll be in next couple days, guys. No big deal. This is the second day out of the surgery, and went right home that next day or the same day.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, I felt great until the major drug wore off. And then I planned for the best. Didn't really plan for the worst. I thought I could jump in the office real quick. But my brain was in the office because I love what I do. I love speaking to you, Alex. I love speaking to people on the air and helping people. I thought I'd have my energy back, and it just wasn't back. How did I plan for it? I didn't plan for it. But how do you plan for it when it comes to your money? That's a hard thing. We don't plan to become sick and then our lights go dim. We don't plan for a car accident, although we do buy car insurance. We don't plan for inflation. We just have to now mitigate or drive ourselves through inflation by reducing our spending, reallocating our investments, maybe not spending money going out to eat as much so we can work our way through it. We've seen inflation. For those of you who've been around as long as I have, and I'm an old dog, 65, and I can tell you, I feel like my brain says I'm 19, 20. My body says I'm a little bit older, at least for now. How do you plan for the worst? Well, when it comes to finances, that's what's called the asset allocation. It's a big fancy word by saying we don't want to have everything in the bond account. We don't want to have everything into the short-term accounts, into the banks. We don't want to have everything into maybe mid cap, small cap, large caps. Maybe we need to diversify around and find different alternatives. So there's in the universe of investments, Alex, like medical costs. Well, there's one thing in medical costs. Of course, they're always going to be expensive, and they keep going up. You have the right insurance. You can plan for that the best of your ability. You can do those planning. And then as things go on, you ask other people, you pull your brain with some other financial advisors who have been through that tough road or who are going through it or understand it. This is really helpful information. And we talked about medical bills. And one of the biggest medical bills I speak to people when they get a certain age is, should I put my house into a irrevocable trust? So in the event I have to go to a nursing home, I've heard this, Scott, how can I preserve my assets? Where do I put my assets? So I want to make sure that my biggest assets, whether it's a huge bank account, savings account, investment account, maybe my house or my second house, should I put that into a special trust to really protect that or shield that or almost insulate that from the crows and the clowns that show up at the funeral? And when I think about that, many people forget that because they don't want to think about going to the nursing home. They want to think about, going to a place they're going to be away from their home. It's hard to think about. That is what you can plan now for. And then, of course, you have special trusts. We have special attorneys here, and that I think we've done a show a time or two. I think we'll do one coming up soon, where we talk about these special trusts that could really benefit some of you out there that are thinking about it, or maybe plan for the best and then plan for the worst. I should say, hope for the best. Maybe you have a son or daughter out there that are going to be preventing, getting money if you pass away. Plan for the best. How do you give it to them? Do you give it all to them? This is part of your estate planning. How do you diversify the portfolio so that they can get a inheritance? Or maybe they are going through a divorce, and how do we protect the money from your child's spouse? These are questions, Alex, I get all the time.
Yep.
I call it a come to Jesus meeting, a really down to earth, real session. This is not textbook financial planning 101. This is asking questions 102.
Right.
Let's really understand what's going on. So again, when you're planning for medical care, let's hope for the best. Yes, we should diversify our portfolio to make money. Plan for the worst. Okay, right now, cash is certain times, cash is a great investment because interest rates are high. But when interest rates are low, diversify. But how do we protect our money? Or maybe we're going through a bump in the road, or possible bankruptcy. You mentioned that's a possibility. How do we protect our assets? This is the art of financial planning. But Alex, by the way, I did write a book called The Financial Planning Process, how the financial planning process leads your money to a mousetrap. If anybody's out there who would like to get a copy of that, please give Bonnie a call. We'll put you on the air. We'll talk to you about it, give you, or those who want a quick segment of the estate planning, we'd love to get that in your hands. Just give Bonnie a call at 609-488-4646. I'll do it. No cost, no obligation. We can send you the e-chapters, like the PDF chapters. You can send it there. And for those of you who want to visit with me one-on-one, I'd love to get you a book in your hands so you really understand all the different areas. I mean, 40 plus years in this industry. And when I try to commonize or put it together, planning, you're thinking for the best. I want the best to happen. We all want the best until you get hit by a car or you go through a divorce. Or your sweetie pie just died and you don't know how to handle the money because he or she did the money, but you didn't. This is the worst. You need to get a backup quarterback in your life. I'd love to speak to you. If you want to give me a call, by the way, if you're needing guidance or want to question me off the air, please do so. Don't put this back in your brain and put this off. I'd love to talk to you. 609-488-4646. You will not get a sales pitch. You will not get a bill. You will not get come and see me and we'll see how we can help you. You're not going to get that. I've been here for so long in Ocean County since 1979 when I moved up from down south, coming off the road, cutting some albums. I can tell you a fact that if you come visit with us, let's just have a conversation. If the conversation leads to a great area, maybe you go back to your financial guy or gal, your lawyer, but you need to get things done. You've put it on the shelf too long. Maybe I'm speaking to you right now. If you've put this on the shelf for too long and have not brought these planning for the worst, expecting the best, but planning for the worst, let's have that conversation because this conversation is a true, real conversation. Why? To protect all your hard-earned time, effort, and energy, which equals assets, protect that from the crows and the clowns that usually show up with their hands out. I don't know if that makes sense to you, Alex. I'd love to speak to you off the air. Alex, I don't know how they can get a hold of me. You want to give them a shout out, but I think this is really important, especially now when our economy is doing some crazy stuff. Plan for the best and for the worst for both.
Yep. 609-488-4646. The number 609-488-4646. Adday.com for the website. And talking about healthcare costs, it's a great thing we have Medicare. Turns on after we turn 65, but it's obviously it doesn't cover everything. And I know you know some about it. You have folks that ask about it. What is not covered generally, and what are some options for folks dealing with these medical costs that are not covered by Medicare?
Well, I can tell you in the Medicare, I'm actually in that area with many of you people out there. But it really, when you think about the Medicare costs, I know you want to look pretty and get that face, a tummy tuck or the facelift, or I need a facelift when I was born. But anyway, I was just thinking, it doesn't cover that cosmetic surgery. If you were hurt in a car accident and need cosmetic surgery due to the car accident, it would cover it. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't cover it because you want to get pretty like me or ugly like me and get prettier anyway.
And we don't recommend people get in car accidents on purpose.
No. That's absolutely don't do that.
Shouldn't do that.
Maybe nursing home. You think it's going to cover nursing home, but that does not cover it. That's a different type of program. Maybe you're about to fly and take a trip overseas. You might want to get travel insurance. I've spoken to so many people, and one of our clients actually almost died overseas. They had to get flown in. Luckily, they had a large enough estate that they were able to get flown in, but they had a hard time getting flown in because they didn't want the doctors to handle them. It doesn't cover that, so you think about your travel. By the way, if you're traveling, I'll throw this out there for poops and giggles. If you're going to go travel, bring your power of attorney, a copy of the power of attorney, and stick that in your briefcase. Good tip for you. If you're going on a trip out of state or vacation, out of the country, bring your power of attorney because you never know on this. The doctors might say, well, who's the power of attorney? And it'd become a real stickler because now times thing or stickler, or make sure that your kids have a copy of the power of attorney. via PDF. They could send to you, but I would encourage you to do that. But again, it doesn't cover. Let's go back to the subject at hand, the Medicare. It's not going to cover your fancy dental work. And so that's expensive. Hearing aids, if you're a veteran during wartime period, or maybe you served and you had certain in a gunnery range, or maybe in a tank, it may cover by the VA. So check out the Veterans Benefit. I've got a great contact for you to call somebody if you need that help for our dear veterans that served, and as well as long-term care. Feel free to call me. I built a company called Veterans Benefit Advisory Group in 2008. And then, of course, your eyes and your eye exam. So hearing aids, there's a lot of things it doesn't cover. You kind of think it does cover. So if you're like me, as you're in the Medicare period of time, these are things you should be aware of. And when you shop it out, which you can shop it out, there's all different prices. You can shop it out every single year. But again, there are things it doesn't cover that you maybe think it does cover.
Yep.
Beware. You want to plan for the best. So I think that's critical.
And Scott, people that have questions, they could give you a holler, 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646. Scott McLean, McLean Advisory Group. This is Financial Insanity, out-of-the-box thinking for your financial sanity. And we're talking today about planning for the worst, hoping for the best. And we're going to talk about long-term care. Nearly 70% of retirees are going to need this at some point. Don't go anywhere. More coming up.
It's nice when you get everything on your list in one place, isn't it? Scott McLean from McLean Advisory Group agrees. That's why he offers comprehensive retirement planning all under one roof. You shouldn't have to go one place for tax planning, another for estate planning, and another for retirement income planning. That's why McLean Advisory Group was started. Scott wanted to build a company that could help families with all aspects of their retirement planning. McLean Advisory Group is more than just convenient. They're knowledgeable and experienced. And for answers for your questions, you can set up a meeting with Scott and his team to talk about your retirement. 609-488-4646. That's 609-488-4646. Use the same number to reach the team online. 609-488-4646.com. Investment advisory services are offered through Bell Point Asset Management, LLC. Firm offers insurance services but does not provide tax or legal advice.
Nearly 70% of retirees going to need some type of long-term care. That's according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So not a sure thing, but chances are you or your spouse are going to need long-term or nursing care of some sort at some time. And while the costs vary by location, the median cost of a private room in a nursing home over $100,000. This is financial insanity, out-of-the-box thinking for your financial sanity. I'm Alex Dingman, along with Scott McLean, McLean Advisory Group. And Scott, no surprise to you, that number there may be a surprise to some. Long-term care not covered by Medicare, Scott.
It's not. I'll never forget my daddy. I don't know if I mentioned this before in one of our shows, Alex, when Daddy and I were in the car, we're buying a property up in Newark, New Jersey, actually East Orange. And we're driving. So, son, when I get older, we were going pretty fast on the Garden State Parkway at the time. This was back in the 90s. And, of course, Daddy was young. Well, back then because he was young, but I'm thinking now I'm old.
Yeah.
He said, Dad, what's on your heart? He goes, son, I just want to let you know that if I get dementia, Alzheimer's, I want you to do me a favor. If I get, disabled,
sure, do
me a favor, go down this Garden State Parkway and push me out. What, Dad? What are you kidding? Yeah. He's like, come on, Dad. Yeah. Now we always joked around like that because we were just a down to earth family. And I said, Dad, are you serious? He goes, son, I don't want to go to a nursing home. But now there's nothing wrong with nursing homes.
Yeah.
But if you're in a nursing home or maybe have a loved one there, you do want to inspect what you expect, by the way. But I'll just remember nursing homes have a way, as you mentioned, Alex, at the beginning of the show, to evaporate that hard-earned income, that hard-earned retirement, that hard-earned beautiful house or estate that you've built. It has a way of really putting a lien on it, and you would never know. So when we talk about healthcare costs, yes, long-term care, and by the way, there's several types, but long-term care provisions or policies or types of contract could be very, very valuable. As we spoke, I guess earlier in the segment, we spoke one time about Medicare and what does it cover, what doesn't it cover, the gaps in between it, the drugs, does it cover drugs? But long-term care, this is long-term care. And some states are more effective than other states. So again, this is a good discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are some products, like give you an idea out there. I'm not selling you. Listen to me. Listen, you guys, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm trying to tell you what's out there so you're aware. See, unaware is lack of knowledge. But if you have knowledge, now you know how to take action. But there's a few products have been out. When I was younger, I remember I was out in Jacksonville, Florida, where I grew up. And I remember some guys coming door to door selling cancer policies. And I remember, what the heck is this cancer policy crap, Dad? He goes, son, well, I understand cancer is getting bigger. This is the 60s and 70s. I'll never forget it. And I remember Daddy was saying, son, we don't need that. It's just cancer policy. It's cheap. It's like something like $50 a year, and they cover all sorts of cancer. Let's snap forward from 1960, and here it's the year 2000. 40 plus years forward, my dad died of cancer and my mom did die of cancer. Should they spend the policy? I don't know. But as of those times, policies have gotten better. They've become more aware that people don't want to throw their money away.
Right.
So there's some kind of contracts called long-term care coverage that'll cover the cost. And this could be in the form of life insurance. So if you don't need it, then what happens is you get a lump sum tax-free distribution. So you get all the money back that you paid in. There's other types of contracts that if you put a lump sum down and you don't use it, you get it all back plus interest. There's other policies. If you like the old policy of day, I think Travelers was the number one back then, or then they actually Genworth was another company, and John Hancock. A lot of companies out there had the long-term care contracts. And so you pay. If you don't use it, you lose it. That's what the normal contracts were of years ago, but they've gotten much better. This might be a good tool, but let me give you another tool out there, guys, in addition to the long-term care that Alex is really waking some people up to. And Alex is a very good topic. I'm glad you brought it up because people think they got it covered, but it can evaporate your money drastically.
Oh, yeah.
And you think, I can take care of my husband. I can take care of my wife if they get it. I can take care of them. Yeah, your heart is big. Your muscles may be big, but they do get worn out. Your energy gets worn out, and now you need some help. It is a caregiver that you're going to need, and I'm going to tell you that 9 times out of 10, you're going to need a caregiver, someone to come in and help you, whether you're your children or maybe someone else, but you're going to need that. And I know we came that with my mom and dad. When Daddy died in 5 days with cancer, leukemia. My mom had cancer. It went from her lung to her kidneys, and 3 months later, she went home to be with the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
But the neatest thing about it, if there was anything neat about it, they died short term.
Of course.
The worst part is watching your mom and dad, like my ex-father-in-law, in a nursing home bed in the VA hospital for 3.5 years of brain cancer. Let me tell you something, guys. This is something that needs to be planned for, and this is something you can do. Whether you speak to your financial advisor or not, or an insurance guy or gal, this needs to be a discussion. Why? Because it's not only a product or a vehicle to use, but maybe it is an estate planning tool. Should I buy or open up a trust? Should I start hiding, or I should say redirecting, better than hiding? Should I redirect my assets into a special trust, which people do with us all the time, Alex, into this trust? So in the event my lights go dim or this money's starting to go out, they will not have to have liens against their property or use the assets. This is planning in the best portion of the area that you can do now. And I think, Alex, people are putting this aside. They're not paying attention. And the reason why? Who the heck wants to talk about your lights going dim?
Yeah,
I don't want to talk about that.
Of course, nobody wants to talk about it, but like we said before, nearly 70% of folks are going to need some sort of long-term care at some point. Yeah. And if you have questions, the number 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646. Usually the time is, well, as early as possible, but when is the ideal time to start preparing for those long-term care needs? Because, I mean, it like anything, I'm sure price goes up longer you wait, but what makes the most sense, Scott?
I'm going to reverse that question. When is the best time to start saving? The first day you get a job. When's the best time to plan for long-term care? When you're about to start to retire, or put that in your plan. See, it's not, you may not even need it, but the new programs and the new facilities they have out there, the new products they have out there, Alex, there are some tools that could really help insulate and protect your assets. I don't recommend a special trust for a lot of people right off the bat, but I'm going to give them heads up. So every year, if your financial advisor, your salesman, your agent, whatever you want to call them, if they don't bring up this area of the healthcare issues, where they're leaving a piece of you off the table. They're not bringing it up. And I'm not being ugly. I'm not being curt. I'm sure they love you to death. But this is not talking about the last trip you had. This is not talking about your kid's wedding or their great grandbaby that just popped out. No, those are great topics. But if we got down into the muck and grabbed our shovel and start to dig down, we're going to find some muck in this discussion to figure out how can we fill this up with protection clauses, rules, whether it's a trust, an irrevocable remainder trust. Maybe you need to start gifting to the children, in addition to protecting the assets, reallocating the investments so it's in a safer mode. So if you need it, it's there. And then, of course, so for some of you who are financially well off, it should be a gifting policy. But by the way, Alex, real quick, that's one of the strategies. I spoke to a person that came in just recently. They have a very nice estate, and I mentioned him on the phone. It came from a radio show, Alex. Our radio show is how much can you gift right now in 2023? How much can you gift right now, and what's the gift tax exclusion? That's $17,000. If you're listening to this show right now, it's 2023. In 2023, it's $17,000. But wait, what's that? But wait, there's more. See, if you're married, it's $34,000. But wait, there's more. You see, in this family, they had a very large estate. And I mentioned to him as we had our phone call when they called in from one of our radio shows, Alex, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but he called in and he asked me, he said, so Scott, what should I do and how should I handle it? I said, basically, on everything you just told me on our call, but I'd like to meet you again in person to make sure I got all the details and see the numbers you have. And he did come in just recently. Right on the phone, I said, did you know you could give each one of your kids right now? In his case, it was wonderful. And each one of you out there, don't use his situation for yours, but just gravitate this to your situation, meaning he wanted to give each kid $500,000. Now, his estate was very, very healthy. And he said, Scott, I can do that right now. I said, yes, but it's going to require a lot of work. Really? What do I have to do? It's one piece of paper. Are you kidding me, Scott? We was joking back and forth. He's an 84-year-old young man. I said, yeah, it's just one piece of paper. And it's this piece of paper will come from your tax preparer. And he said, well, does it cost a lot of money? No, it's actually probably maybe $25 and you fill out the forms. He said $25 and I can give each kid $500,000. They don't pay any tax on the money I give them. And I could do that right now. I said, yes, absolutely. He said, well, I want to do that. What is that piece of paper? Okay, that's called the gift tax exclusion form. You've got to fill that out. You give that out to the event. You can give actually a tremendous amount of money on the exemptions in 2023, and every year it's been going up. So I encourage, if you're thinking about giving and you're using the number 10,000, that's old school. Today it's 2023, it's 17,000, and it goes up every year. But actually, there's an exclusion up to $20 million if you're married and over. So this is a great way, again, when you're looking at the publication 559, if you pull that up on the gift taxes, you can read that if you like reading that boring stuff. But for those of you, to him, it's not boring because it affects him. Yeah. So again, Alex, when we're talking about the long-term care, we're talking about taxes, we're talking about gifting. This is where a financial advisor really needs to to get down and dirty and look at all the areas. And I'm sure your guy, if you're listening to me, I'm sure your guy or gal does that. And if they don't, maybe they're just a one-trick pony and sell certain individual products. This could be not good for your financial health.
Yep.
You got to look at everything, Alex.
Absolutely. And if you have questions, Scott has answers. 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646. When we come back, the top 5 signs you need a new advisor. This is Financial Insanity.
Scott McLean at McLean Advisory Group often talks about the difference between retirement savings and retirement income. It isn't necessarily how much money you have saved that's most important. It's having a steady stream of income in retirement no matter how long you live. Scott has strategies that can help you create consistent monthly income for the rest of your life. He can help you make important decisions today so you can have the income you need in retirement. Having a big nest egg is great, but how will it provide you with the income you need for as long as you live? The number to get more information from Scott at McLean Advisory Group is 609-488-4646. That's 609-488-4646. Turn your portfolio into a plan with help from Scott McLean. 609-488-4646. Investing involves risk. Firm offers insurance services. Investment advisory services are offered through Bell Point Asset Management,
News,
LLC.
tips, and financial tricks, all right here.
It's the kind of dazzle we need around here.
This is Financial Insanity with Scott McLean, powered by McLean Advisory Group.
Well, if you've been with an advisor for a while and you're thinking about making a change, there are 5 signs it is finally time to fire your financial advisor. Or maybe you're just considering getting a second opinion. We're going to hear about that now. Scott McLean here on Financial Insanity. Thank you so much for joining us. And Scott.
Thanks, Alex.
Yes, this is one of those times where, maybe somebody's out there thinking, gosh, I don't know if this person is right for me, or maybe they're thinking, I've been hearing about the value of getting a second opinion, and maybe one of these notes here or one of these signs will resonate with you. So let's jump into it here, Scott. So the first sign that it could be time to fire your current advisor, they are not acting in your best interest. I know that is so important, Scott.
It's really important, Alex. When I hire a limousine driver to bring me to the airport or bring me somewhere, my best interest is to get there on time, safely, securely, with a nice, smooth, comfortable ride. The challenge is in this volatile market, are they paying attention to it? Or maybe they're acting on their benefit. Let's get the highest rate of return, but that's speeding up and slowing down and speeding up on that limousine. Well, if they're not acting in the best interest, they're not a fiduciary. They're selling products that may have had their pocketbook. Are they ethically bound by, as we are, as a fiduciary? Are they obligated to really ask lots of deep, concerning questions? I think that's the number one. Are they acting in your best interest out there listening to me? Are they just, don't worry, hang in there, like they said when I was in the early 80s, hang in there, don't worry, it'll come back. In the year 2000, hang in there, don't worry, it'll come back. That's what they told us to say. Those statements doesn't work when you're in retirement or nearing retirement. So number one is, Alex, are they really looking at your best interest? Are they asking about your spouse and their health? Asking lots of really come to Jesus, I call it, questions. Are they really getting down in the dirt? Maybe you have a child that's disabled. Are they thinking about that child? How are they going to protect it? Maybe their lights are twinkling. They're getting dementia. Are they listening to your best interest, not just growing the money? That's really important. They're looking maybe at commissions versus really advising. That's really important.
Well, and like a driver that maybe's getting gas after picking you up as opposed to doing it before. They're not acting in your best interest. Like you want an advisor to be thinking about me instead of thinking about yourself.
Absolutely.
Now, number 2 here, as we're going through 5 signs that it could be time to fire your advisor, they dismiss your input, Scott. You wouldn't want that.
I don't know anybody, and it's time really to leave, dismissing the input. I think if I was at Christmas time, if I wanted a new tennis racket, I remember the famous Arthur Ashe tennis racket. I played tennis a lot when I was younger, and I really wanted a tennis racket. Well, if I got a ping pong racket, I wanted a tennis racket. Different game. You hit the ball across the little fence or the big fence. The question is, did mom and dad dismiss me? And that really makes a challenge for how I feel about things. You didn't listen, Mom, Dad, or you didn't listen, Mr. and Mrs. Advisor. You see, with the expertise of asking about the taxes, ask about the legal questions, ask about the financial and investment questions. Maybe you were aggressive a few years ago when the market was taking off, but now it's going down and they don't listen to you because they say, well, it's going to come back. Hang in there. Don't worry. They absolutely didn't listen, and maybe they respond, but they didn't take action. And this is a real problem in the industry today because hopefully the market's come back. It's had a real challenge. I would like, if anybody's out there listening, you'd like a little discussion. Let's have a little talk. I'd love to talk to you off the air, and if you'd like to ask some questions to me, I'll be happy to get a hold of you. You can actually leave it with Bonnie, and Bonnie will set up a time to have you talk to us off the air at 609-488-4646. Because when you hire a financial advisor, not only, number one, they were saying not acting in your best interest, and number two, are they listening or are they dismissing your input? In other words, maybe you had a child that has to move back in with you because they made a series of bad decisions and they're going through a financial challenge. Okay, that needs to be in the plan. That's why I think these financial plans are good for a short period of time, maybe a month or two, not for a long period of time because life happens. So number one, not acting in best interest. Number two, they dismiss your input. Please, this is important to discuss this, if not on a yearly basis, at least once or twice, maybe 4 times a year if your life is really changing. Don't let your input get dismissed. Alex, now you had number 3, which is really challenging. Alex, what have you heard out? What was number 3, the biggest challenge you've heard?
Sure, and what I'll say too is, and this kind of goes 2 and 3 kind of go hand in hand. And to your point about a person like Bonnie, Bonnie is just such a great asset for you, a tremendous person to work with, to talk to, and just a great person to have in your office, and somebody who will never be number 3. Difficult to reach because sure, Scott, you might be in and out of meetings with other fine folks, and Bonnie is the person in your office to be there to help take those calls and guide clients to you and through the process. But number 3, as far as 5 signs it could be time to fire your advisor, they're difficult to reach.
You know, Alex, that's a wonderful choice. I was going to bring that up. I had different words, but your words are much better than mine. Difficult to reach. You know, we've actually just hired 2 more people because our practice is growing, which I'm so pleased it's growing. We get so many of our clients referring us, and not being able to. The number 1 goal is to take care of our clients. Number 2 goal is get new business, and of course we got to get new business to keep our business going. But luckily, we don't work out of the back of our car. We don't travel to someone's house. We don't. We have to have them come here. I used to do that in the early years of my practice, from 1982, 83, 84. And actually stopped doing that in around 1995, 96, where people started coming in. I just could not make my time worthwhile. So if they're working on the back of the car, God bless them. But if they don't have a staff and someone to follow up with the questions, we're trying to train our new staff members to answer a lot of questions because we don't want people hanging out there. Just today, we had the beautiful husband pass away, and we're now discussing with them, with his wife, how do we plan your income? You've just lost your husband's Social Security since yours was higher. He had a pension. His pension dropped down from $1,000 a month to $450 a month. So we have to make that up. We're trying to figure that out. You know what? They need to reach somebody. And that's important. That's why we have to have a staff. So I think that's really important because, again, being in that limousine, you want to be able to communicate with people which way to go, how to get there. They think they know where to go, but maybe you have a different area. So if you can't reach them, they dismiss your impact. They are not acting in your best interest. Well, are they difficult to reach? And this is really, really a challenge I hear. It's almost like you buy a product at the bank, thinking the bank's going to protect you. You set it and forget it. And that is not the area, because life as a fiduciary, as an advisor, it has a lot of different segments, which is legal, tax, and finance.
Well, and if you want to reach Scott, you can at 609-488-4646. Again, the number 609-488-4646. Going through 5 signs it could be time to fire your advisor. Number 1, they're not acting in your best interest. Number 2, they dismiss your input. Number 3, they're difficult to reach. Number 4, Scott, they don't give you the details. Now, I don't want all the details, but heck, if I'm giving you some of my money or a lot of my money, I would like to kind of know what's going on and what you're doing with it, and not have it be a bunch of mumbo jumbo.
You know, whether they're investing $5,000 or $500,000, $1 million, each person is not, Alex, a cookie cutter. Now, when I say cookie cutter, Alex, what that means for those of you listening, let's say you have mutual funds and you bought what's called target date mutual funds. They call it the 2020, 2025, 2030. In other words, when are you going to retire? And say, well, I'm going to retire in 2035. Okay, you click it, set it, forget it. No. Not good. You need to really pay attention to those areas because they got to dig down for more details as to how much do you want to pull out. If it's for income, do we want money for our special needs child? What happens if you become disabled? These are in-depth questions that could lead down the estate planning role, which we do at our firm. I think you know that, Alex. We do that really. We got great people. Maybe they have other types of investment tools they didn't tell us about or didn't tell the advisor about. They need to pull that in, which we did just the other day, where they had an extra $30,000, which didn't change their life, but they said, oh, Scott, by the way, we have an extra $30,000. Great, let's put that over here. You take care of it. Go put it in a 3% account at Ally Bank if you wish to use them. Great liquid. But again, people's details are so important. Most of the times what I find, Alex, is if I don't ask the questions, they may not even remember to ask. Or if I don't ask diving deep questions, by the way, who does your money go to? Oh, you want to make sure it's protected because your daughter has a spendthrift problem? Well, maybe we need a spendthrift trust because if she gets it all at once, she's going to blow it. Or maybe your son is married to a person, a woman, a man that they don't like, and you want to protect that money from that person. Maybe we need to have that discussion. Again, this is a time for the advisor that I hope, if before you advise them, are they asking you really deep down, I call it intimate questions, intimate meaning intimately about your finances, to make sure you preserve your money. The money goes to the right place. And today's could be different than 2 years from now. So again, a tight lip will sink a ship. Well, could it sink a ship if you know there's a hole in it? Well, let's go tell the captain we got a problem. So again, I'm not sure what you guys are doing out there listening. That's right. You right now that are listening to me, you got to give all the information out there. They're not asking. That's why when I wrote the book, The Three Blind Mice, how the financial planning process leads your money to a mousetrap, I bring up 11 different flags that pop up. And for those of you listening right now, if you'd like to get a copy of my book, I'd love to get it in your hands any way possible. Just give Bonnie a call, because these are some questions that Alex brought up, the 5 different areas. Number 1, not acting in your best interest. Fire him or your advisor. Number 2, they dismiss your input. They're not listening, trying to have their own agenda, not your agenda. And by the way, your agenda may change, as we just spoke. Number 3 was they're difficult to reach. And lastly, number 4 is they don't give you clear or all the details. But there's one more.
One more, Scott.
There's one more that's really, really, really important that ties it all together. Alex, what was that number 5? I think that you found when you speaking to your mom and dad and other advisors, families.
Absolutely. We got just a couple minutes left. We want to go over the last one, and this one's important. And for you, it's something that's easy. You're a people person. You're a social guy. You're easy to get along with, and you want to get to know people. And this is the last one. So 5 signs it could be time to fire your advisor. The last one, they don't take the time to get to know you. Why is that important, Scott?
Guys, listen, if you're listening to me right now, if you invest any money with an advisor, the first time you meet them, you need to run. If they beg you for money, you need to run. You need to get to know them. know their personality, their role. It just may not be a good fit. And if you're married, have a special partner, you know what? You guys need to talk about it on your own. I would do no business with anybody. I tell it to clients when they come visit me, Alex. We will not do business today. I want to get to know you. I want to know if I can help you. I want to know if we're a good fit for our firm and a good fit for you, because if something happens to you, I need to know how our firm can best serve you. So they don't take time to get to know you. You need to get your questions written, not just are you a fiduciary? That's important. Please, 609-488-4646. This was, again, the top subjects, the top area that people want to make a shift in their advisors. It's time to look at them. Number one, they're not acting in your best interest. Number two, they dismiss your input. Number three, they're difficult to reach. Very important. Number four, they don't give you the details. They need to give you all the details. And lastly, really don't take time to get to know you. This could be a wonderful time to get another opinion.
This presentation may contain information which has undergone regulatory or other significant change since its original recording. The information on this program is educational in nature and is not intended to be a recommendation for any specific investment product, strategy, plan, tax, or legal advice. Information presented is believed to be factual and up to date, but we do not guarantee its accuracy. Discussions and answers to questions do not involve the rendering of personalized investment advice and is limited to the dissemination of general information and may not be suitable for members of the listening audience. Communications such as this are not impartial and are provided in connection with advertising and marketing or McLean Advisory Group. Prior to making any investment or financial decisions, an investor should always seek advice from a financial, insurance, legal, or tax professional. McLean Advisory Group and or Scott McLean offer investment advisory and financial planning services through Bell Point Asset Management, LLC.
This radio show is a paid placement.